In 2009, I was a 6-year-old just starting 2nd grade.
When I wasn't watching Bakugan, playing Little Big Planet, or doing my homework with a crayon, you just might catch me playing Pokémon Platinum for the Nintendo DS. Everybody's first Pokémon game forever holds a special place in their heart, and I'd be hard-pressed to find someone who thinks any game in the series tops their first outing with Pokémon. I've played and finished Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Unova, and Kalos games. I started and got immensely bored of Alola, and I haven't touched Pokémon since. But I felt the intense urge as of late to go back to Pokémon. The good Pokémon. Is modern Pokémon bad?
I honestly don't know. I haven't played any main series games since the 3DS.
And that's exactly why I'm looking at Pokémon Platinum again.
As a full-grown adult with decades of gaming experience under his belt, I want to put a pause on this whole living in the modern age thing, and go back to the good old days.
You know, the days when House was on TV and eggs were, good golly, $2.57? I could make so many breakfast sandwiches. So let's take this adventure, you and I, to the newly snow-dusted region of Sinnoh, where strings and piano tunes echo through the air. The pixel art is pristine, and the Bidoofs stay Bidoofing. Pokémon Platinum is in the 4th generation of Pokémon games, alongside Pokémon Diamond and Pokémon Pearl, and later the remakes Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. The game we're discussing today covers the story of the Sinnoh region. Compared to those games, however, Pokémon Platinum features an expanded narrative, faster gameplay, some aesthetic changes to the world, and overall provides a better, smoother experience.
As a child, I knew people who had Pokémon Diamond and Pokémon Pearl, but I've never played those games myself.
I was a Platinum gamer all the way, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Okay, now that we're all on the same page, let's hit the road.
Like all Pokémon games, this one begins with the regional professor introducing you to the concept of catching monsters inside of pocket-sized balls. Professor Rowan isn't a particularly interesting character, in my eyes, but really, none of the professors are.
They're mostly old men, occasionally a young woman, and they only serve to move the plot along.
Also, they help you make your character and any rival characters. By default, the rival's name is Barry, and I've always played with that name for the sake of the narrative. This time though, I freestyled.
Behold, the goofy, the ridiculous, the persistently annoying character throughout the entire game, Agonzo. I don't know why.
With all the clinical stuff out of the way, it's time to descend into the Sinnoh region, specifically Twinleaf Town. The game begins with the main character,
me, I guess,
watching a TV report about the previously mentioned Professor Rowan. Gonzo saw the show as well, and he invades the sanctity of our home to suggest that we go hunt Professor Rowan down and pester him until he gives us Pokemon. Finding this to be a great idea, and against the precautionary words of Mom, we leave to run through the dangerous Pokemon-infested tall grass to Sandgem Town, where Rowan's lab is. Before we can get ourselves pecked to death by a small bird, Professor Rowan of all people stops us, gives us a minor lecture, then realizes our passion could be harnessed for his own scientific gain. Thus, he gives us starter Pokemon. Do I need to explain how Pokemon works? In the game, you catch creatures, battle them, level them up, sometimes they evolve, and so on and so forth. Each Pokemon has 1 or 2 types, which have varying effectiveness against every other type. Cool? Cool. The main starter Pokemon in every main series game to date is either fire, water, or grass type, and they form a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing in terms of type effectiveness.
Grass dries up water, water puts out fire, and fire burns grass.
Whichever Pokemon you pick right now, Gonzo will pick the one that's strong against you.
What a jerk.
I've played Pokemon Platinum many times throughout my life, but I've never chosen one of the starters. In the spirit of shaking things up this time around, I'll try something new. Piplup, I choose you. Satisfied with his community service for the day, Professor Rowan and his lab assistant Dawn are off to Sandgem Town. It's here where Pokemon Platinum really begins. With our starters in hand, Gonzo declares it's time for a battle, and the first turn-based encounter of the game begins. Gonzo's starter Turtwig takes center stage on his end. Piplup rises to the challenge, and the battle begins. Okay, the first 30 minutes of Pokemon battles suck.
I'll admit it, they do.
As a kid, I don't recall these bothering me, but as an adult, I am thoroughly antsy to get to the good stuff. The stuff that takes some actual strategy and forethought. Before leveling up a few times, your starter Pokemon will have a single damage dealing move, and one stat buff or debuff move. This means most of the early game battles are two Pokemon repeatedly slamming into each other with little to no strategy required.
I've dubbed these first few battles the Tackle Wars, because Tackle may be one of the moves you have for this first hump of the game.
Once your Pokemon learns a move from its type, Bubble in my case, then the game's pace picks up a bit.
I won't lie though, the first part of the game is slow going, but I guess that's to be expected since most of Twinleaf Town and Sandgem Town are tutorials.
After battling Gonzo, we go home and fill Mom in on everything that happened. At her behest, we head out to Sandgem Town to properly thank the professor for his generous gift.
Even in Pokemon, Mom's still forcing you to go up to old people and thank them for giving you gifts. Thanks, Grandpa!
On the way there, Gonzo decides to come along, but first, he distracts us with a trip to Lake Verity. There, we get our first glance at a story-important character named Miley.
Wait, no, Billy Ray. No, final answer. Cyrus. Yeah, Cyrus.
Besides the fact that he's edgy and has blue hair, we don't know much about him yet, but I'd encourage you to remember his name and pixelated face. Once in Sandgem Town, Grandpa Rowan lets you nickname your Pokemon, another feature I haven't used until recently. It wasn't until I started making videos that I began nicknaming Pokemon, and I'm going to keep that going for this playthrough.
Everybody, forget about Piplup, and give a warm welcome to Topper.
Rowan also enlists our help in documenting all the Pokemon in the Sinnoh region, and encourages us to travel the region battling in Pokemon gyms, which serve as progress touchstones throughout the game. He also has Dawn show us the ropes with respect to healing at the Pokemon Center and shopping for supplies at the Pokemart. After a quick trip home to tell Mom we're going to be gone for a while, Dawn also shows us how to catch Pokemon in the ever-important catch tutorial. With that, we've got the setup we need to take off on our own.
Well, almost. Does anyone have an Apple Watch I could borrow?
The Poketch, given to us after we hunt down 3 clowns in the metropolis of Jubilife City, is a Pokemon trainer's best friend in terms of technology to fill up the bottom DS screen. It can tell the time, do math, show you your party of Pokemon, stuff like that. It's a little pointless. Almost as seemingly pointless as this chance encounter with an odd international policeman named Looker, but we'll circle back to him in due time. Our main purpose of being in Jubilife City, besides the fact that it's the only place we can go from Sandgem, is to hunt Gonzo down and deliver a package to him that his mother wasn't able to hand off before he darted away.
We also need to pass through here to get to Orberg City, home of the first Pokemon gym.
Before going there, we'll probably need some more Pokemon. Well, honestly, no, we don't, since Topper over here is going to destroy the gym leader, but we should catch one for the fun of it anyway. I elected to catch a Pokemon I've never used before, Kricketot. This little guy is a bug-type Pokemon, and I rarely use those. I decided to nickname him Peapod just because I think it's a bug-like name.
In total, you can carry 6 Pokemon at once, and any extras can be swapped in and out at the Pokemon Center.
Catching new Pokemon is something the game encourages you to do a lot, but I generally only catch the Pokemon I need. I didn't used to be this way, but I just stopped seeing the value in random catches, especially since progress in this game is tied to the number of Pokemon seen, as opposed to the number caught. In contrast, previous games in the series have locked you out of rewards until you physically catch a certain quantity of Pokemon, whether or not you'll ever use them. I plan on using Peapod for the rest of the playthrough, so he was a good pickup. Gonzo's also been busy catching new Pokemon, and he's eager to show them off in the second rival battle of the game, which takes place right outside of Jubilife City's east entrance. This battle is still a little rough, since Bubble isn't that great of a move against Gonzo's Starly or his Turtwig, so it ended up being another tackle war. It didn't help that Peapod is relatively useless either. Because his only damage-dealing move is Bide, and that requires him to take 2 turns of damage and survive, Peapod was on the bench for this fight. I did level him up a bit before and after the fight though, and eventually, he was able to evolve. Say goodbye to Peapod the Kricketot, and hello to Peapod the Cricketoon. This upgrade was greatly needed, as it came with a move that Peapod can actually do normal damage with, but he'll still be on the bench for a little while, since there's not much he can do in Oreburgh. Right before you make it into the city, you'll get the first of the game's HMs from a random hiker. An HM, or Hidden Machine, allows you to teach a Pokemon a move that has a use in the field. In this case, we get the HM for Rock Smash, which lets you break these small rocks, but only after you beat the Oreburgh gym.
The HM system is one of the most outdated mechanics in this entire game, and it's something that, honestly, the newer games handle better than the earlier generations.
Basically, an HM is a regular Pokemon in-battle move, so it takes up one of your 4 move slots, and it can't be regularly forgotten or overwritten, unless you talk to a specific NPC in a specific town.
That means, over the course of the entire game, you're sacrificing 8 of your 24 total moves across your party of 6 Pokemon just to be able to solve simple puzzles or access required areas.
In later games, beating a gym unlocks the same abilities, but without tying them to a taught move.
During the earlier generations, it wasn't uncommon to have HM friends, which were Pokemon caught solely for storing HMs.
When you needed to use Rock Smash, for example, you'd swap the HM friend into the party, but when it was time for a battle, you'd go back to your normal party of 6. For now, we only have 1 HM, but I still caught a Bidoof and nicknamed him Bink Bonk to serve as my HM user. Thank you for your service, Bink Bonk.
And with that out of the way, we're finally ready to explore Oreburgh City.
Upon entering the city, we're swept away by a helpful NPC who walks us to the oddly vacant Pokemon gym. Usually, there's a gym leader just sorta hanging out inside, waiting for us to battle them. According to Gonzo, who's first in line at said gym, the leader's gone away. That leaves us to explore the city to find him, or just talk to the second closest NPC who tells you his exact location. Neat. Inside of Oreburgh, there isn't much to see, but I took a trip to the museum just to see it, had the video runtime, that sort of thing. Eventually, I wrapped up my leisure and headed toward the Oreburgh mines. There's only a few trainers down here and a handful of rock-type Pokemon, but I'm glad I ran into them because they remind me of a story from my youth.
When I first played Pokémon Platinum, I chose Turtwig. I'm not entirely sure why, but before I even got to Oreburgh City, I restarted the game and instead chose Chimchar.
When I did get to Oreburgh, I was in for quite the rude awakening. You see, fire types like my beloved Chimchar are absolutely stomped by rock types, like, for example, this level 9 Onix. As a kid, I thought I had stumbled into some sort of awful dungeon, and this Onix was the boss. Oh, how foolish I was. Look at how Bubble just destroys this guy. At the bottom of the mines, we find Big Bad Rourke, who's supposed to be doing his job as the gym leader.
Okay, he also has a job managing the mines, or something, but I only care about his gym duties.
While I was trekking down to his hiding spot, Topper evolved, which will make the gym battle even more of a joke. Topper the Prinplup comes with boosted stats, the move Metal Claw, and a step closer to full potential. By the way, when I say the gym battle is a joke, I really mean it's a joke. Not an offensive joke, more of an, okay, I get the idea kind of joke that you don't laugh at. The math is simple. Super effective water-type moves against a gym entirely full of rock-type Pokemon equals an in-and-out gym battle that nets us our first gym badge. With that in hand, we can return to Jubilife and pass through the northern gate to progress towards the location of Gym number 2. On the way there, we'll encounter the main villains of the game, Team Galactic. 2 mysterious, bowl-cutted individuals are harassing Professor Rowan and Dawn for their research on Pokemon evolution. In order to stop this, we team up with Dawn for a double battle against the 2 grunts. Being low-level evil team members, their teams aren't super challenging, and they're easily defeated. Just as quickly as they showed up, they'll scurry north, which just so happens to be on our way too. With some wise words of advice from Rowan, we break out Bink Bonk to use Rock Smash, and we progress to unexplored areas.
Namely, Floroma Town.
And what a pretty town it is. These little pixelated flowers bobbing back and forth in the wind are so charming to me.
I guess now's a good a time as any to digress and talk about how good the older games look.
Okay, maybe not that old. The DS games, in particular, are where I think the series peaked in visual fidelity. The early Game Boy games didn't have the technology of color or animation to get the point across, as well as the DS games did, and the modern Switch games just look plastic and lifeless. I'd argue Pokémon Black and Pokémon White were actually the best looking games objectively, but I'm biased towards the 4th generation. The character sprites look great, the limited use of 3D is so charming, and there isn't a single environment that isn't brimming with personality.
Even the colors in this game just stand out to me as perfectly coordinated.
Looking at something like Generation 3's games, which were on the Game Boy Advance, the colors look washed out to me. I don't even want to get into how the modern games try to tackle color. It's not worth my breath.
Anyway, back to progressing through the game. Thanks for indulging me.
A short jaunt around Floroma Town leads to the discovery of more Team Galactic goons hanging about, and a young girl begging for help as her father has been taken captive inside the Valley Windworks. Shockingly, it's revealed that Team Galactic are the occupants, and it's our job to clear them out. A battle against the doorman, a little walk to the flowering meadow, back-to-back battles against the grunts we previously saw kicking dirt, another walk back to the Valley Windworks, and 2 more grunt battles later, and we're standing toe-to-toe with Team Galactic Commander Mars, one of 4 leaders behind the dastardly team.
Before we get to dealing with her, let's recap what the battles fought to be here were like.
There are 2 main things I discovered while on my way to Mars. Peapod still sucks against most enemy trainers, and Hypnosis is an awful Pokemon move to fight against. Regarding Peapod, I think he's still in his awkward phase. He doesn't have a good variety of moves yet, and the bug type isn't particularly useful for the moment. It's a shame because if I don't use him on occasion, he'll fall behind in levels, and it could be hard to catch back up. But if I do use him, I lose. The enemy Pokemon using Hypnosis definitely doesn't help that.
In Pokemon, there are 5 status afflictions: Burn, Sleep, Poison, Freeze, and Paralysis.
Of those, Sleep is probably the most frustrating, since it's the most common one that disables your Pokemon completely. While asleep, your Pokemon cannot act in battle. Compared to the damage over time of Burn or Poison, or just the occasional skipped turn of Paralysis, Sleep is easily the worst one. To my knowledge, Freeze and Sleep are identical, but you almost never encounter Freeze. Sleep, on the other hand, will be a constant throughout the game.
I think I get so frustrated with Sleep, and other status afflictions, but mostly Sleep, because I've never used them.
Stat boosting / nerfing moves and status moves are rarely on my Pokemon's moveset because I can get through all of my battles against NPCs just by spamming a powerful attack. Unlike a game like Final Fantasy, where you have dedicated physical attackers, sorcerers, healers, etc., Pokemon doesn't feel that deep to me. I guess the NPCs don't see it that way, so they'll continue to spam Hypnosis until my DS becomes a Frisbee. In her pre-battle speech, Mars explains that Team Galactic is attempting to, create a new world that's better than the current one. And I guess a single wind energy farm with less than 10 turbines is an essential cornerstone of their plan. Mars's team consists of a Zubat and Triconic Perugly, whose tanky self has led to countless children's tears. I tried putting my Peapod foot forward, and that didn't pan out. But thankfully, Topper came in and clutched the match. Zubat had Toxic, which is a move that poisons you, but it's not Sleep, so who cares? As quickly as they appeared, Team Galactic is gone, and the father and daughter of the Valley Windworks are reunited. Something the little girl is excited about are the balloon Pokemon, who will now be returning to the area.
How soon will they be back? Well, they'll be here on Friday. And only Fridays. But not if you fought Mars on a Friday.
Thankfully, I fought Mars on a Tuesday. Meet our newest Pokemon, Breeze. The balloon Pokemon that visits the Windworks is the Ghost/Flying type Drifloon, which I think could be an interesting type combination for the team. Having a flying type is always useful, and you'll see why later, but it'll be especially good to have for the second gym. While Breeze may only be level 15, we do have a lot of good leveling opportunities on the way to our next destination. The route between Floroma Town and Eterna City is jam-packed with battles, and we'll take advantage of these to level up our newer team members. I won't cover every battle, but I did want to draw attention to this one because I got stuck in a brutal cycle of flinches, which skip your turn.
As always, the CPUs are lucky, and I am not.
At the end of Route 205, we enter the Eterna Forest, one of the most tranquil places in the entire Pokemon series, if you ask me. There are a lot of insanely calming areas across the games, but Eterna Forest, with the sunlight peeking through the leaf line, the music bouncing from tree to tree, and the slow-paced nature of the area conjures such intense feelings. I can almost feel the cool breeze of autumn blowing across my face right now. Within Eterna Forest, we also meet our first of a handful of companions, Cheryl. As an opportunity to get more double battles into the game, we'll join forces with a few NPCs during our time in Sinnoh. The best part of this is that after every battle, whether it be a wild encounter or a trainer match, your follower will fully heal your party. So level grinding is super easy.
I didn't do any of that this time around, but it's cool to have the option.
Unfortunately, having a partner does make catching wild Pokemon super difficult, since your poor trainer has the aim of a 6-year-old throwing the first pitch at an MLB game on the planet Jupiter. You can't even attempt to throw a Pokeball until one of the 2 opposing wild Pokemon are defeated. You can control your Pokemon, sure, but Cheryl's are at the mercy of the machine. Say you KO Pokemon A with the intention of catching Pokemon B. There's nothing stopping Cheryl from sniping B before you can get your bearings. Oh well, you can always just come back later to pick up any Pokemon you want. At the tail end of the forest, there's the Old Chateau, a haunted mansion with an extremely creepy ambiance. You can't come here until you beat the Eterna City Gym, and there's nothing to do here besides catch Rotom, but I wanted to mention it anyway because it too is a really awesome environment to explore. The music especially drives the atmosphere home. I love the music in Platinum, if it isn't clear yet. There really isn't a good time to go on a tangent about the music, since good tracks will keep popping up throughout the entire duration of the game, but pay attention to all the background tracks.
They're worth your time.
Now that we've made it into Eterna City, there's not much to do besides say hi to some old friends and meet a new one. Hello Gonzo, hello Cyrus, and hello Cynthia. No, I'm only kidding.
I know the world loves Cynthia, with some people's love being a little more deranged than others, but that's not me.
Cynthia is cool, but I'm not going to order a body pillow of her or anything. She gives us the HM for Cut, which we'll need shortly. Jumping back for a quick second, Cyrus is standing next to the Eterna Pokemon statue, talking about how Sinnoh's history and the very fabric of time and space are interwoven.
Dang, he's weird.
Heading to the southern portion of the town allows us to meet Gardenia, the grass-type gym leader of Eterna City.
Because of her type speciality, this gym battle will be headlined by Peapod and Breeze, because their bug and flying type moves will hit the grass type Pokemon for super effective damage.
They're both still a little weak though, so this battle is by no means in the bag. Luckily, we'll have some EXP grinding prior to battling Gardenia. The star mechanic of this gym is the Central Flower Clock, which only rotates after beating each of the 3 gym trainers. Taking one down allows you to fight the next one, then Gardenia.
Like I said, this is a great opportunity to get some extra experience points in order to level up, because we have to do these fights anyway.
I had a pretty rough time going through these matches, mostly thanks to the gym trainer's insistence on moves that cause paralysis. Stun Spore is a move that, when it hits, causes the enemy Pokemon to become paralyzed. This means they'll always move last and occasionally not do any action at all.
Per my previous statements about never being lucky in Pokemon, I got paralyzed multiple times throughout these fights, and I frequently got my turn skipped.
If you can't beat them, join them though. So I started getting into the habit of using Peapod's Sing move to put my enemies to sleep, which buys me several turns of free movement.
Pun intended, this turned the gym into quite the snooze fest.
When the enemy Pokemon isn't doing anything, and there's no immediate danger, there isn't much to care about. I clicked the A button through these battles without that much attention being spent on the game. Gardenia's battle continued this trend, where I used Sing to put her Pokemon to sleep, just to whittle their health away with Peapod's incredibly weak moves. Even with the buff of moves being super effective, and having the same type attack bonus, none of Gardenia's Pokemon went down fast.
Now, I did have to use some super potions during this fight, which should indicate difficulty, but in my mind, this was more to get myself and Gardenia back on the same playing field, because she too used super potions.
Plus, I didn't want to have to start the battle over. Doing another round of putting Pokemon to sleep would have been a pain. In the end, I got the second of 8 gym badges and left Eterna City with my head held high, only to turn back around.
You see, we can't head out of the city because the cycling road bans pedestrians, and we can't get a bicycle because the shop owner has gone missing.
There is a useful item pickup though, the EXP share. This item splits the EXP earned in battle between the battle participant and the holder of the EXP share, even if they aren't in the battle.
This item is extremely useful for leveling up Pokemon that have fallen behind on the curve, so I wanted to pick it up as soon as possible.
Visiting the bike store allows us to find out that the shop owner was last seen entering the Galactic Building at the north end of town. You know, this weird looking structure? Yeah, I can't imagine the Nimbies of Eterna were happy with that one. Maybe we can knock out 2 Starlies with 1 rock throw and clear them out for both our sakes.
And so, we head into enemy territory to engage in a handful more battles.
The story here is that Team Galactic is stealing people's Pokemon for either no reason at all, or one very specific reason, depending on who you're talking to. As you're battling up the Galactic Eterna building, you'll run into members who ask you to donate your Pokemon without specifying why they'd want them. But at the top of the tower, before you battle the Galactic Commander Jupiter, you'll hear that they stole the Cycle Shop owner's Clefairy because it, quote, came from space. Oddly enough, that Clefairy is held captive next to a normal old Baneri, which verifiably did not come from space. Oh yeah, Jupiter is here, and she's a Galactic Commander, just like Mars from the Valley Windworks. She refuses to hand over the stolen Pokemon unless we beat her in a battle. Before doing this, she gives us a little peek into the mind of Team Galactic. According to her, Team Galactic has successfully investigated the Eterna Pokemon statue, and their leader, whoever they may be, is studying the ancient myths of the region deeply with the intention of becoming the ruler of all of Sinnoh. During the battle itself, Jupiter fell really flat. Besides her Skuntank getting Topper pretty low on HP, before he swooped in with a torrent-boosted critical hit Bubble Beam, the fight was uneventful. Post-defeat, Jupiter and the rest of Team Galactic vacate Eterna City, and the people's Pokemon are returned. As a gesture of thanks, the Bicycle Shop Man makes good on his sole purpose in life, and gives us a bike. Besides allowing us to move faster and navigate up muddy slopes, the bike grants us access to Cycling Road, and therefore, the rest of the game. Cynthia also pops back in and gives us a Pokemon egg to hatch, but that thing went straight into the Pokemon storage PC, never to see the light of day again.
I don't have time for a Togepi.
For the next stretch of the game, all we'll be doing is battling.
Battles everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
Leaving Eterna City through Cycling Road puts you on a fast track down a steep incline littered with trainers. If you know what you're doing and hate EXP, then you can get through the area encounter-free. I, however, like leveling up my Pokemon, so I battled every trainer along the route.
It was pretty fun, and there were a few gems of dialogue.
I won't share them all, since they're not that interesting, but I think losing a battle made this guy pee himself. Tinkle? Okay, man. Everyone has accidents. Just go home and wash up. Moving on from that, we hit Route 207, which connects back to Oreburgh City through means of a muddy slope that only a super ultra souped up bicycle, like the one we have, can navigate. Then the central mountain, Mount Coronet, which basically cuts the Sinnoh region in half. And after that, we get on to Route 208, which takes us to our next major city.
There are 3 things worth mentioning before we get there though.
First, we run into Dawn again. She hands us the VS Seeker, which lets you rebattle enemy trainers, and that's great for both replayability and ease of level grinding. Shortly after seeing her, we run into another familiar acquaintance, Cyrus. Inside one of the chambers of Mount Coronet, the place where the Sinnoh region started, Cyrus waffles on and on about human suffering and the imperfect nature of the world we created.
I think he has some intriguing things to say about the human condition, and how often we find a way to make a disaster out of any hand we're dealt, which is pretty deep for a children's game.
On the other hand, why is Cyrus here, and where is he going? If we track his movements so far, he's been at the lakefront outside of Twinleaf Town, the Pokemon statue in Eterna, and now he's in Mount Coronet, leaving towards Oreburgh.
I sure hope he has a bicycle, otherwise he's stuck. Unless he just walked away to look cool and was planning on U-turning the second we leave. A strange man, he is.
Continuing towards our next destination, we hit Route 208 and battle some more Goofy Goobers, fairly par for the course.
The most important thing for our application of Route 208 is that we'll be catching our 4th team member here.
To round out our team a little bit, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Thorn, the Roselia. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yes, Thorn is spelled with an E. No, there is no relation to Bella. Thorn is a dual grass and poison type Pokemon, which will be incredibly helpful in our future battles against water types. But it's also just a cool Pokemon I've never had the chance to use.
With the exception of maybe the 6th and final team member we'll catch much later on, I've never used any of these Pokemon before, which is really saying something, since the Sinnoh Dex is, in all honesty, abysmally small.
I never noticed it as a kid, but looking through the list of available Pokemon now, there's not a whole lot to get excited about. Pull that list down to just the Pokemon that are worth a darn, and it's even shorter. That's not a new criticism of the game though, and it doesn't hurt the experience that much in my eyes, but I do think it's worth mentioning. What's not worth mentioning is the bonus minigame featured in the city we're about to enter. Hearthome City is the heart and home of the Pokemon contest circuit. By circuit, I of course mean one singular contest hall.
There's a whole page on your Pokemon screen of their moves contest stats, but I could not care less.
We obviously aren't doing everything in this playthrough, but we're doubly not doing contests. Apparently, our mom is, though. A required trip to the contest hall reunites us with Mom, who's a contest legend from back in the day. The real reason we need to be here is to chat with Fantina, who doubles as a contest coordinator and the gym leader of the Hearthome City Gym.
For those of you keeping track at home, that is the 2nd gym leader we've had to ask to go do their job.
As the saying goes, 2 isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Inside Hearthome's gym, we find a spooky flashlight challenge, and not simple algebra like there was in Pokémon Diamond and Pokémon Pearl, as well as the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes. Wandering around a dark room may have you thinking the gym is themed around the dark type, but in reality, it's a ghost type gym. During the trainer battles, I quickly discovered that most of my team would be useless against Fantina. Ghost Pokemon are weak to ghost and dark type attacks, which only Breeze has. Topper, being a strong Pokemon overall, could also be useful in the fight, but the young Thorn and increasingly useless Peapod can't hold a candle to the enemies. In preparation for the fight, I leveled up Breeze a bit more. Turns out, Breeze evolves at level 28. Now a Drifblim with bulkier stats, I braved the darkness of Hearthome Gym and took the fight to Fantina herself. Compared to the Oreburgh and Eterna gyms, this battle was actually genuinely challenging. I didn't have a crazy type advantage with an overleveled Pokemon like I did for Rourke, and I couldn't just spam Sleep like I did for Gardenia. Instead, this fight was a genuine give and take with actual strategy. The biggest thing in my mind during this fight was how to either burn Fantina's 2 super potions early on, or how to avoid her using them at all. When a gym leader's Pokemon gets low on HP, chances are they'll pop a potion if they have one. If the Pokemon in question is their strongest one, you're in for a world of hurt. If it's one of their weaker ones, and all it takes to get them low again is one attack, you can essentially manipulate them into wasting their healing item and their turn. Fantina's Mismagius was the toughest Pokemon she had, but thankfully, Topper was able to come in and get the battle back on track after Breeze was knocked out. I will say, I kind of expected more out of our new beefed up Drifblim, but I know he'll continue to get better and better as his moveset is expanded. Peapod on the other hand, oof. I can see why I've never bothered to use a bug type before. I'm sure eventually Peapod will get some useful moves, but as it stands, it feels like a sunk cost to keep the EXP share on him as I go through gyms like this one, where my stronger team members can do actual work. With that exciting battle in the rearview mirror, Fantina happily presents us with our 3rd gym badge, and it's back on the road we go.
As is the case with a Pokemon game though, we don't get too far before something interrupts us.
In this case, that something is actually a someone, and that someone is the great Gonzo.
Actually, he's not that great.
In this 3rd rival battle, Thorn makes her debut against Gonzo's Weasel, but otherwise, the fight wasn't super eventful. It's your standard affair of tussling with your childhood friend after you both set off at the age of 10 to go explore the world, see every creature known to man and then some, and stop an international crime ring.
All before you can legally see a PG-13 movie on your own.
Exiting the Hearthome Gate brings us to Route 209, which is home to a slew of trainers with baby Pokemon, and a song that sounds oddly like Green Day's 21 Guns.
I'm far from the first person to make this comparison, but seriously, take a listen for yourself.
At the end of this route, we see the Lost Tower, which we'll be entirely ignoring, and Solaceon Town, which we will be mostly ignoring. Inside the town itself, we have the daycare, where you can level up and or breed your Pokemon, a newscaster or something, I don't know, I'm just skimming Bulbapedia. But outside the town, we have the Solaceon Ruins, which contains the HM Defog. It makes sense to get it now, and so we shall. Solaceon Ruins is a pretty simple maze cave thing that's filled with unknown, 26 Pokemon that make up the English alphabet. There are a few trainers that Topper swept without as much as a second thought, and overall, it's not hard to navigate the ups and downs of the cavern. Doing so nets us that ever-important HM I was literally just talking about, and we can leave back out to the great outdoors with our heads held high and our eyes set on the next major city, Veilstone. Route 210 and Route 215 are fairly par for the course. With the exception of new tall grass on the former and rainy conditions on the latter, I don't think there's a lot to discuss here.
Oh wait, there was a maid cafe!
They were cool in Sinnoh before they were cool in Japan. Battle a maid, get some milkies. What a place for a modern 20-something-year-old. While battling the trainers on the way to Veilstone, I prioritized leveling Breeze and Topper, with Peapod on the EXP share in an attempt to keep him up to speed. Mainly, I did this because they would be the most useful Pokemon in the upcoming gym battle. I'm starting to feel like the moves we have in rotation are a little stale, but one certain activity in Veilstone is going to change that.
I talk about it like it was interesting, but in all honesty, it was the most boring thing in the entire game.
Every Pokemon game has one major metropolis that hosts the legendary department store. This multi-story shopping experience has more items for sale than anywhere else in the region, and it's always a treat when you get to go on a major shopping spree.
Unfortunately, there's nothing useful for me available in the shop at the moment, but there are some TMs for excellent moves available in, shall we say, an alternative store.
For the final time in a new Pokemon generation, we had the ever-sought-after Game Corner, featuring slot machines. Toss some dollars to the dealer, swap them for tokens, and spin to win. Every move TM that is worth a darn is 10,000 tokens, and in order to get that many, you've got to gamble. For several unholy hours, I sat at this slot machine and I pressed X. TMs wise, I got Ice Beam for Topper and 2 Hidden Powers for Topper and Breeze.
Hidden Power is a special move where the type that the move will be is dependent on an individual Pokemon's hidden characteristics.
Topper and Breeze had Flying and Ghost type hidden powers, so I swapped those into their movesets. I also bought a couple of Metronome items, which boosts a Pokemon's move's damage if it's used repeatedly in battle. That means if I were to, say, spam Breeze's Gust attack against an upcoming gym of Fighting-type Pokemon who are weak to Flying-type moves, I'd build up a combo to literally double the damage potential out of the attack.
Wouldn't that be something?
A lot of people miss the game corners in modern Pokemon games, but besides the novelty of "lol, kids game has gambles, wah?" I don't think it's a good addition to the game.
It's really boring, tedious, and it lacks worthwhile items behind an arbitrary wall.
Having these items be out in the field, or having them earned through some form of real gameplay, would be a far better way of distributing them. Instead, I had to sit down and press the buttons in the order that Clefairy pointed until I was a multimillionaire. I feel nothing. Must mean the money's working. And with that, we're off to the Veilstone Gym to take on its leader, Maylene. On the way over to the gym, Dawn stops us to chat about shopping and Pokédex progress.
This is worth mentioning, I promise.
Once her brief interruption is done, we can head inside the martial arts dojo-themed gym to work our way towards the fighting-type gym leader. Over the course of Veilstone's gym, you have to push different punching bags around to knock over stacks of tires in order to clear pathways to get closer to the end goal.
In terms of theming, I like the aesthetics of this gym, but in terms of gameplay, the whole pushing a thing to knock over another thing is a little phoned in.
For one, this gym's got a bunch of holes in the floor, which doesn't bode well for a dedicated martial artist like Maylene. And two, the concept itself isn't fighting themed at all. You could replace the tires you knock over with rocks, small trees, or headstones, and immediately the puzzle could be repurposed for any of the gyms we've seen so far.
Ultimately, the gym puzzle doesn't really matter since it's just a small distraction before you get to the real hurdle, the gym leader.
Now, I don't say this lightly, but Maylene's gym battle was the coolest, most eventful, edge-of-your-seat, nail-biting thing I've seen in a Pokemon game in a long time.
When people ask why I play Pokemon, battles like this are the answer.
Going in, the plan was simple. Both Breeze and Topper have flying-type moves, which are super effective against Maylene's fighting-type Pokemon, except for her ace. Her weaker Pokemon, Meditite and Machoke, went down without too much fuss, but her Lucario is where the battle really got tense. At this point, Breeze was down, and Topper quickly fell to the wayside as well, without dealing much damage, leaving only our newest member, Thorn, who hasn't done much battling yet, and Peapod, the infamously weak and kind of useless bug Pokemon.
Both Pokemon rose to the occasion for this battle, and I'm as proud as someone can reasonably be of pixelated sprites of both of them.
Here's the breakdown. Thorn went in first with a Grass Whistle and Leech Seed combo, which put Lucario to sleep, then inflicted damage over time. At that point, it was a war of attrition.
Would Lucario wake up and strike Thorn down? Or would the Sleep and Leech Seed lock win out?
Excitingly, the former happened, and the fate of the battle fell onto Peapod's shoulders. Little Peapod, little level 30 Peapod with incredibly weak moves against a fighting type like Lucario, somehow had to stand tall against the toughest battle thus far in the game.
Knowing Peapod, I feared this battle couldn't be won with Brawn, so instead, we used our brains. Or, well, we used our vocal cords.
Sing. Sing is another move in our arsenal that could put Lucario to sleep. All Peapod needed to do was put Lucario back to sleep and continue to keep him asleep by repeatedly singing until the Leech Seed damage won out. Anytime Lucario woke up, he'd get in a single attack before Sing would again put him to sleep. The one pathway to victory required Peapod to endure strong hits and not miss any of his Sing attacks. The result? Cinema. Peapod, you've earned your spot on the team once and for all. Never doubt the little guy, y'all. Maylene insists she learned a lot from our battle, and I feel the same way.
What makes a game worth playing? Amazing graphics, excellent story points, and fun gameplay? Sure, all of those things, but in my mind, the most important thing is the emotional response that the game elicits.
Whether that's the joy of messing around in a sandbox with friends, the crippling fear of a horror game, the relaxing nature of a farming sim, or the scream-out-loud excitement of clutching out a boss fight. These feelings are what allow games to dig their roots deep into our hearts and minds.
Pokémon Platinum was filled with moments like these, and the mind of a child is more well-equipped to extrapolate these moments out of the game and into the real world.
That's why this game means so much to me, even though at the end of the day, it's just a turn-based RPG, same as any other.
It's so heartwarming to know that even as an adult, there are still these gems of emotion within this video game.
Dawn lost her freaking Pokedex. While I was pouring my heart and soul out, she went and got her dang Pokedex yoinked by Team Galactic. Dawn's a good friend at this point, so we engage in a double battle with her against the Galactic Grunts at their storage warehouse. Once they're defeated, they scatter, and Looker shows up a moment too late to catch them. Inside their warehouse, we see a back entrance to somewhere the Grunts have access to, and the HM for Fly, a move that allows you to fast travel back to any Pokemon Center you've accessed before.
This is hugely convenient, because we're starting to reach the point in the mid-game where we may need to start retracing our steps.
Of course, being an HM, we need a Pokemon to give it to, and that's one of the reasons I chose to add Breeze to the team. One installation later, and we have a flying hot air balloon. For now, Veilstone is all dried up for us. That looming galactic building in the upper right corner of the city is super interesting, but I feel drawn south right now. Leaving Veilstone puts us on Route 214, which, along with the Valor Lakefront and Route 213, lead to Pastoria City, the location of the 5th Pokemon Gym.
There's not much to talk about when progressing through these routes normally, since they just have a few trainer battles, but in our case, we have a new friend to catch here.
Inside a cave connected to Route 214, we find a whole ton of Geodude, which is just what we're looking for. 10% of encounters in this area, statistically, hold the key to our 5th permanent teammate, a Hippopotas. A ground-type Pokemon, Hippopotas marks yet another species and type I haven't made use of before. Unfortunately, we won't see this Pokemon in battle for a little while, but she'll have the EXP share on her going forward.
My nickname for this hippopotamus is Heffalump, and I can only hope that there aren't any Woozles out there. God, I would hate to see a Woozle.
On our way to Pastoria, we pass by an entrance to Lake Valor, which is blocked by a news team, and the way to Sunny Shore City, which is unavailable thanks to a power outage.
Good things to make note of, but not relevant at the moment.
The only thing we're looking at is this swampy land known only as Pastoria.
The future is in the past! Aurea! Onward, Aoshima!
Just like Veilstone, Pastoria City gives us the golden ticket to just walk up to the gym. The gym leader's just sitting there, waiting to do their job.
It's so refreshing to see someone take their job seriously for once. I'm looking at you, Rourke.
Unluckily, Gonzo's here and he's itching for another rival battle. I guess it's been a little bit since we tussled in one of those. The battle against Gonzo was fairly straightforward, not too much to report. Gonzo only has 4 Pokemon, and I had a super effective counter for each one of them. Upon his loss, Gonzo tells us he's Crasher Wake's apprentice, and warns us of the ferocity of his new mentor's gym.
Oh, by the way, Crasher Wake is the water-type gym leader who operates out of Pastoria City. Now we're all on the same page. I forget this might be some people's first foray into Pokémon Platinum.
In order to get access to Crasher Wake, we have an Ocarina of Time styled water level puzzle where we have to raise and lower the amount of water in the gym in order to float platforms to new heights. There are a ton of water-type trainers to battle on the way, and they gave me a peek into what the fight against Wake could be like. It didn't look good. You see, a lot of the Pokemon used weren't pure water types. Wingull, Pelipper, and Gyarados, for example, are all part flying, which doesn't bode well for Thorn, who I wanted to sweep this gym. Also, Crasher Wake's strongest Pokemon is level 37, and mine is not.
Leveling time.
Using the trusty VS Seeker, a few hours of spare time, and the music of Sabrina Carpenter, I got this whole team up a little higher in levels. Did you know she's in Fortnite now? I spent $20 to get her. She can be in a pink dress or a baby blue one, and somehow you can get a yellow version too, but I don't know how. Check out this emote.
What were we doing before this? Leveling. Right.
Now that the team's a bit stronger, we can take on Crasher Wake and his team of a Gyarados, a Quagsire, and a Floatzel, who range from level 33 to 37. My initial plan was to have Thorn go in with her lineup of Grass Whistle and Leech Seed, and that worked fairly well until she fainted. Then, the battle became a trial for Peapod and his Sing move, and Topper was called in to close the battle out.
All in all, Crasher Wake was a stressful fight.
Gyarados is part flying type, which made grass moves not as effective, and Wake's ace Floatzel knew Ice Fang, so grass moves were a no-go there, too. Quagsire was a pushover. Goofy little dude. Look at that face. With that bomb of a gym battle out of the way, and our 5th gym badge in hand, we're free to do our own thing. Until a bomb goes off.
Yeah, Team Galactic planted a bomb in Pastoria's Great Marsh area, which sent the whole town into a frenzy.
Crasher Wake goes to assess the damage, Gonzo comes out of nowhere to make sure nobody gets into any danger, and we're sent off to chase the demolitionists down.
Now, personally, I'd be more afraid of the anthrax attacks that usually follow events like these, but I guess chasing the criminal down is a good use of time. Although, isn't that Looker's job?
Oh, hi Looker. Thanks for nothing. Following the grunt all the way back to Valor Lakefront doesn't lead to much, but on the way, we do hear more about Team Galactic's plan. Apparently, they want to create an entire new universe, and explosives play a key role.
We'll learn more in the future, but for now, it's time to get back to our own journey.
Thanks to another interaction with Cynthia, we're equipped to head north of Solaceon Town towards a new place, Celestic Town. Cynthia asks us to deliver an item to her grandmother there, and we need to swing by anyway to pick up a new HM. 2 Starly, 1 Rock Throw. Strap in for one of the least fun stretches of the game, by the way.
Yes, the awfulness of this route is partially my fault, but I'm protesting a feature in a nearly 20-year-old game, so cut me some slack.
Defog is an HM we got access to a while ago, but this is the first time when we'd need to use it. I say use because it's technically optional, and that's how I treat it.
I hate Defog.
My main problem with this HM that sets it apart from the others is how infrequently you'd want access to it.
Across the entire video game, there are a total of 5 areas with fog in them.
In order to clear those out, you'd need to almost always carry a defog Pokemon with you, since you never know when it may pop up. HMs like Rock Smash, Cut, or the one we're about to get also waste a move slot, but they at least do damage in battle, and we need them far more frequently than Defog. There are some bad HMs across the Pokemon series, but Defog has to be the worst.
As such, I pretend it doesn't exist. Admittedly, that's a bad idea.
Route 210 has many tough trainers, and without using Defog, your Pokemon will be whiffing their moves 40% of the time, as Fog cuts accuracy to 3/5 its normal value. Battles along this route are frequent, and they last forever with both sides missing constantly. I don't know what's wrong with these trainers to lie in wait along a foggy route, but I hate them, and I hate Defog more. I was relieved to see the entrance to Celestic Town literally pop in behind the fog, because it meant my foggy nightmare wasn't only over on Route 210, but for a while in-game.
Regardless, we've made it to Celestic Town, and we can deliver Cynthia's MacGuffin to the Village Elder.
On the way to completing that errand, we're interrupted by another terrorist threat. This time, it's up to us to prevent Team Galactic from blowing up the Celestic ruins, which hold key hieroglyphs to uncovering Sinnoh's past. A single, lowly grunt stands between us and preventing a second galactic bomb from hitting the Sinnoh region, and the fight is incredibly uneventful. The grunt runs off, and the village elder thanks us, takes Cynthia's charm, and encourages us to look at the Celestic legend ourselves. On the outside of the ruins, there are two opposing carvings discussing the vastness of time and space, and inside the cave, there are three beings carved into the wall, making a triangle shape. The Elder explains how three entities hold the universe in balance, but it isn't known who, what, or where they may be. A mysterious voice chimes in with a question, and it's soon revealed that it belongs to Cyrus, that weird guy we've been seeing across the world. He confidently declares that he's tired of human suffering, and that he plans to rid the world of strife by essentially rebooting it. Frustrated by the Elder's lack of enthusiasm toward his dream, he threatens to deface the ruins himself, and when we try to stop him, he reveals that he is the boss of Team Galactic, and that nobody can stand in his way. With that, our first battle against Galactic boss Cyrus begins. Sporting a Sneasel, a Golbat, and a Murkrow, Cyrus's team is nothing to scoff at. Topper led the fight this time around, but the entire team had to pull their own weight to make this fight a success. Even Heffalump had to enter the fight. One thing that threw me for a loop was Murkrow's Insomnia ability, which prevented it from being put to sleep.
I'm certain it's obvious at this point, but I was heavily relying on sleeplocking my opponents throughout this playthrough.
But back to Cyrus. We defeated his Murkrow with chip damage from Heffalump's Sandstream ability, which causes the Sandstorm weather effect for the entire battle.
This is actually a detriment, since all of my Pokemon take Sandstorm damage, and I have no way of stopping the storm once it starts.
So I basically can only send Heffalump in when she'll be the last Pokemon in the battle. Great.
Thanks for the Sandstorm, Heffalump. How rude.
Once Cyrus leaves, he claims that he'll gather the deities of time and space, and that once he does, he'll be unstoppable. Cynthia's waiting outside the ruins once we return to the sunlight, which kind of means she could have run the darn errand herself, but whatever. And she gives us the HM for Surf, which enables us to get to the next gym city. By flying to Jubilife City, then surfing west, we arrive to Canalave City.
Let's talk about Surf for a second.
90 power, 100% accuracy, 15 PP. A dang good move to use in battle. Surf is better than the Bubble Beam move we had on Topper up until this point, and we just get it for free as an infinite use hidden move? This is what an HM should be, not freaking defog. On the way into Canalave, Heffalump reached level 34 and evolved. This makes her the third fully evolved member of our team, but that's just the first domino to fall in and around Canalave City. We've got major growing to do. No more is this evident than in the rival battle against Gonzo that takes place on the Canalave City Bridge. Sporting an equal number of Pokemon on his team, Gonzo has 4 fully evolved Pokemon, and 1 Pokemon that doesn't evolve at all. Of those Pokemon, 1 is Torterra, the fully evolved version of his starter Turtwig. Topper's still in his second stage on our end.
This fight was what you would expect out of a rival battle, but it did serve as an eye-opening litmus test for how developed our team is, and how far we still have to grow.
Canalave City itself can be described in one word: classy. With a jazzy piano track in the background, boats coming to and from the harbor, and Sinnoh's only library, this place exudes the lifestyle of the rich and famous. Continuing the lovely trend from Veilstone and Pastoria, the Canalave Gym is ready for us to challenge it, but we're going to ignore it for a bit. On the advice of Gonzo, we can take a boat ride out to Iron Island, an offshore training ground and active mine where the Pokemon and trainers are aplenty. There is a required trip out here to get the HM for strength, but sticking around longer is advisable for the copious amounts of EXP there is to claim. On top of that, there's a new companion trainer. Riley and his Lucario are investigating Iron Island's sudden onset of rabid Pokemon, and we're tasked with helping him out.
I don't know if there's any in-game explanation for it, but Riley looks a lot like that one guy from the Lucario movie.
I remember him being called an Aura Guardian, and I remember Ash putting on his gloves to conjure up an energy ball or something, but I don't think they're the same guy, even though they look the exact same and have the same Pokemon. Riley's really cool though. On top of a nifty outfit and a very popular Pokemon, he heals your Pokemon between battles throughout the duration of Iron Island.
This makes it a prime location for leveling up.
Within Iron Island, we had perhaps the most important evolution of our entire journey, when Topper fully evolved into Empoleon. Now a combo water and steel type, Topper's entirely ready to take on whatever else the game throws our way. Additionally, a dropped item ball containing the shiny stone allowed Thorn also to fully evolve into Roserade. These evolutions come with major stat increases, making some very core members of the team even more reliable, which we'd see in the upcoming gym battle and beyond. Returning to the plot of Iron Island, near the bottom of the mines, there are two random galactic grunts that are apparently the root cause of the crazed wild Pokemon.
I just thought they'd seen a K-pop idol or something. People go crazy for that, right?
The grunts are easily disposed of, and that's enough for Riley to call it a day.
Before exiting the area, there was one more thing I needed to do. Catch the final team member.
A Steelix rounds out our team of 6 Pokemon, and holy mackerel is this catch abysmal. I had this thing at a single pixel of HP and asleep, and it broke out of over 20 Pokeballs. I whittled down its HP with Peapod's Cut HM and put it to sleep either with Sing, Grass Whistle, or Heffalumps Yawn, and it still wouldn't stay in the ball.
I've caught legendaries easier than this chunk of metal.
Eventually, I did catch it in a freaking Dusk Ball, which I am peeved about, and I named it Sterling.
With that catch done, and after returning to Canalave City, I'm proud to finally present the complete Pokemon team.
Topper, Peapod, Breeze, Thorn, Heffalump, Sterling, and Bink Bonk.
These 6 Pokemon, plus 1 HM friend, will travel across the land, searching far and wide. Each Pokemon to understand the power that's inside.
We're just about ready for the 6th gym, but before taking the plunge, I worked with Heffalump a little bit in order to get her moves up to snuff. Now with Earthquake and Fire Fang, I truly think Heffalump is ready to take a starring role in a battle. Canalave Gym would be her first trial. The Steel type is weak to fighting, fire, and ground type moves. It goes almost without saying that Heffalump is the best equipped to fight in this gym, followed by Topper and Thorn based on the secondary types of many Steel Pokemon.
On paper, this is a Steel type gym, but in execution, this is basically a ground type gym.
Thanks to the limited variety of the Sinnoh Pokedex, you're either getting Magnemite, Bronzor, Steelix, or Scizor for the gym trainers, and the gym leader, Byron, has a Magneton, Steelix, and a Bastiodon. Of all those Pokemon listed, they're either weak to Heffalump's Fire Fang or Topper's Surf.
I overcomplicated this gym just so I didn't sweep it in 3 turns.
Against Byron, I used Heffalump to put Magnemite to sleep, then switched to Sterling and used the Stealth Rock move to deal damage upon Byron's switching Pokemon. Then I set up Sleep and Leech Seed with Thorn, then I spammed Surf. I defeated all 3 Pokemon with Surf.
Sorry, Byron. I honestly feel bad.
Funnily enough, Byron's son is also a gym leader. Rourke, the Rock-type gym leader, who we breezed through with Topper, is the son of Byron, the Steel-type gym leader, who we breezed through with Topper.
Like father, like son.
After the battle, and with 6 out of 8 gym badges in hand, Gonzo drags us to Canalave's library, where Professor Rowan and Dawn are waiting for us. Rowan talks about legendary Pokemon and their inability to evolve, as well as how his research would benefit greatly from studying the 3 legendary Pokemon of the lakes. We know of Lake Verity and Lake Valor, but Rowan adds to that knowledge Lake Acuity, which is at the far north section of the region. The professor continues by asking Dawn, Gonzo, and us to split up and capture the legendary Lake Pokémon. Dawn is to go to Lake Verity, Gonzo is to trek north to Lake Acuity, and we are head to Lake Valor. Just as those plans are getting arranged though, an eerily familiar boom echoes through the air. Flicking on the television informs us that Lake Valor had been bombed, and Gonzo speeds off to go see what's happening. Frightened for his and the region's safety, Rowan and Dawn urge us to follow after him.
At this point in the game, the narrative really starts to move into the limelight.
We won't see the climax of the story for another hour or so, but the gears really start turning here, and everything we do until the 8th and final gym will be driven by the story.
I'm not going to sit here and talk about Pokémon Platinum like it's an Agatha Christie novel, but I do believe it had the most engaging story and genuinely interesting villains up until this point in the series.
Did Generation 5 swipe this crown a few years later? Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's still wearing it to this day, but before it existed, Pokémon Platinum was king.
We'll learn more about Team Galactic, and more specifically, Cyrus, as we go throughout the game, but what's the point in spoiling all that now when we can experience it firsthand?
Rushing to follow Gonzo yields the shocking realization that Team Galactic's explosive has removed all of the water from Valor, exposing the lake bed and allowing direct access into the cave containing the legendary Pokémon Azelf. Battling through the grunts all the way to Galactic Commander Saturn has you going up against the only commander that's been hiding for the whole game. Apparently, all it took was a single explosive to weaken Azelf enough, and Saturn and his team have taken it to the Galactic HQ in Veilstone. He also mentions, after getting thoroughly whooped by Topper, that the same heist is being done simultaneously at Lake Verity, which is just a short jaunt from our hometown of Twinleaf.
This part of the game is nail-bitingly tense and incredibly cool.
It calms down fairly quickly, but running around the world while stressing out about what all of our friends are having to deal with and what will happen to the world we've been exploring is so nerve-wracking.
Added on to that, the second lake we have to rush over to try and save is essentially part of our hometown, and the stakes get raised even higher.
I always like to stop by Mom's house in Twinleaf at this point in the game, both because I need a heal and because I think it's charming to swing by home for some advice in a time of crisis.
Call your moms, people. They know how to stop international terrorist organizations that are capturing beings of local legend. You call Dad if you need help changing a tire.
Entering the Verity Lakefront has Professor Rowan calling on you to help Dawn, who's locked in a battle with our old enemy, Commander Mars. A series of double battles against grunts block the path, and it was really fun to throw different combos of Pokemon at them. Topper and Peapod, our OGs, teaming up against Team Galactic. In the next battle, our newest members, Heffalump and Sterling, used their common ground typing to actually thrive in the sandstorm weather condition. And to wrap this heist intervention up, Breeze and Topper bringing down the pain on Mars a second time.
Well, it was Breeze's first time, but the Collective's second time. You get the idea.
Unfortunately, Mars claims that we're too late, and that the legendary Pokemon Mesprit has also been captured and taken to Veilstone HQ. With her and her troops pulling out, Rowan and Dawn are left to wonder how Gonzo's faring at the far north lake of Acuity.
It's up to us to find out.
Leaving either east of Eterna City or west of Celestic Town takes us to the upper portion of Mount Coronet, which leads directly to the frosty, mountainous region of Skyrim.
Dragons won't be useful here though, because most Pokemon used in this area are ice types, which absolutely destroy dragons.
In order to see those ice types, though, Mount Coronet is the first hurdle to clear.
All things considered, the mountain is relatively tame. In total, there are 3 screens to pass through.
The first one requires Rock Smash and the new HM Strength we got access to from Byron. The next is another defog room I'm protesting, and the final screen is a long hallway that leads out to the blizzard-stricken Route 216. Exiting the cave and stepping out into the blinding white snow is such an awesome experience. Something about the blizzard snow falling to the ground, the twinkly music starting up, and the abundance of Ice-type trainers feels so quintessentially Sinnoh.
It feels like my Pokemon game home.
Route 216 and its continuation of Route 217 have plenty of EXP that's ripe for the taking, especially for Sterling, who needs a little boost before he stands front and center in his first gym battle starring role.
More on that in a second though. First, we have to actually get there.
On the way to Snowpoint City, we'll chat with Maylene, the gym leader from back in Veilstone, and there's a necessary detour into the deep snow plain in order to find the HM for Rock Climb. When the snowfall finally breaks as we enter the Acuity Lakefront, we'll see that Gonzo has successfully navigated the snow, unlike Jack Torrance, and that he's used the aforementioned Rock Climb HM to get to Lake Acuity proper. I guess he's not in much trouble, since our chance passing comes with an insult at how slow we are, and a challenge to go beat the gym leader in order to catch up to him.
Sorry Gonzo, I am late.
I got a little hung up with the aftermath of an explosion so large it displaced hundreds of gallons of fresh water in a lake. Then I had to run back home to make sure the place both you and I and our families live didn't become a crater.
But sure, call me out for being a few minutes behind you.
Walking directly east from here has the Acuity Lakefront giving way to Snowpoint City, which also sports an incredibly tranquil visual ambiance and auditory bliss.
I especially want to mention Snowpoint's rare weather event, Diamond Dust.
On January 12th, February 27th, February 29th, March 15th, March 31st, April 22nd, September 2nd, September 20th, and October 30th, Snowpoint City will experience a lighter, twinkly sprinkling of snow called Diamond Dust, which is an actual, real-life occurrence. These dates are all significant to the Pokemon franchise, Japan, or America, and are therefore commemorated with this in-game Easter egg.
Diamond Dust doesn't have any effect on the gameplay itself, but hidden details like this are what make the Pokemon games feel magical to me.
I, of course, didn't discover this Easter egg as a kid, and I certainly am not the first person to talk about it, but I had to bring it up anyway. The sheer joy brought about by these amazing bubbly little pixels is indescribable. I just want to sit here and stare at them for hours.
And gosh, let's talk about Snowpoint as a location for a second.
The ambiance is hauntingly still, like the town is decaying under the weight of its nothingness. An NPC in-game even comments on this as well, saying there is nothing exceptional here. That's what makes Snowpoint unique. The empty town, echoing music, and overall stillness of the area compared to the bustling nature of even a smaller city like Canalave can be really eerie if you stop and take it all in.
But we don't really have time for that. Team Galactic's gonna press the reset button on the whole universe, remember?
The only way we can even attempt to stop them is by taking on the local Ice-type gym leader, Candace, and getting her badge so we can use Rock Climb in the field. Candace's gym puzzle involves slipping and sliding around on the ice floor in order to slam into small snowballs which block the straightforward path from the entrance of the gym to Candace's podium. While moving around, there are about half a dozen trainers to fight, and they all give really good EXP and a glimpse into what battling Ice-type Pokemon will be like. Spoiler alert, you chop them to bits with Steel-type moves. Hello, Sterling. Funny seeing you leading this gym. Not like I've been leveling you up for an hour already or anything. No, but for real though, Sterling really did a fantastic job taking the reins for this gym battle. I'm legitimately so proud of the team we've put together on this adventure. Candace battled with a Sneasel, a Piloswine, an Abomasnow, and a Frostlass in that order during my gym battle. Sterling took the first two down with ease, but struggled a bit with Abomasnow. Being Candace's scariest Pokemon by far, Abomasnow hit Sterling with a super effective Water Pulse and ended his sweep of the match. I swapped Topper in next, thinking I could use his steel move Metal Claw to finish out the battle, but that didn't exactly go to plan either. Even though Topper got Abomasnow down to this much health, it wasn't enough to cinch the encounter, and Candace used a cheap potion to basically reset the battle. Knowing she was going to use her turn healing, I swapped Thorn in, who, despite her crippling weakness to Ice-type Pokemon, was able to put Abomasnow to sleep so Heffalump with her Fire Fang could chew through the competition with 4x damage. Against Frostlass, Thorn again had to come out with the tried and true Grass Whistle plus Leech Seed plus Magical Leaf combo, ultimately defeating Candace's 4th and final Pokemon and securing the 7th gym badge. Now with the ability to scale rock walls, we can return to the Acuity Lakefront to see what kind of damage Team Galactic has done, and how well Gonzo has done at holding them off.
Badly! He did badly.
He got so awfully defeated by Jupiter that there aren't even any grunt battles to do. He literally lost so quickly that backup didn't even arrive yet.
Gonzo, you bozo. I'm not mad, just disappointed.
Anyway, now that Team Galactic have gathered the 3 legendary Pokemon of the lakes, they've returned to the Galactic HQ in Veilstone to do some science and announce some announcements. With Looker's help, we're able to sneak into the depths of the Galactic Warehouse with the goal of finding a way into the main headquarters to put a stop to their plans. Within the warehouse portion of the Veilstone base, there isn't much to do besides battle grunt after grunt and pick up random dropped items. Eventually, one of those dropped items will be the Galactic Keycard, which enables us to enter the heart of the base through the freaking front door.
It's here where we see more of Team Galactic's inner workings.
Specifically, there's a speech delivered by Cyrus where he lays out the overall plan that Team Galactic is working to execute, and we get some expanded information about this plan shortly after his PowerPoint. Cyrus continues spreading his rhetoric that the universe, the world, and its inhabitants are incomplete beings who will never know peace inherently. As such, humanity is doomed to fight, maim, wound, and kill for eternity. At the peak of Mount Coronet, and thanks to the research and development of Team Galactic scientists, Cyrus will be able to finally put an end to the needless pain by putting his mysterious plan into action. All the grunts in the audience rejoice, as if their boss didn't just call them all idiots to their faces.
If there was any doubt that Cyrus was including his underlings in his whole humanity is forever flawed thing, he spells it out pretty clearly a few rooms later.
Cyrus explains how he plans to take only himself to the new world he's creating, as he is the only perfect living being. Because he has isolated himself from experiencing emotions and making connections with people, Pokemon, and, trees, I guess, he's fit to live in a world free of strife. Baffled by the illogical nature of our emotions and our desire to save the legendary Pokemon we know nothing about, Cyrus challenges us to another battle. And the fight is on. Between the first battle we faced Cyrus in and this one, he's evolved his Golbat into Crobat, and his Murkrow into a Honchkrow, and they are tough.
It took a lot of my team's strength to get through this battle, and it was only the first hurdle to clear in freeing Yuxi, Mesprit, and Azelf.
Going up against Cyrus's Sneasel, Sterling took center stage with his Iron Tail attack, using the Steel type's super effective strength over the Ice type. Next up was Topper versus Cyrus's Crobat, with the intention being to use Ice Beam to take down the part Flying type. Again, this went over pretty well, with Crobat's Confuse Ray barely getting to Topper at all. Lastly, we had Honchkrow come out, and Topper was able to clutch that battle up too, thanks to Ice Beam freezing Honchkrow and buying me some extra turns. Upon his defeat, Cyrus hands us the Master Ball, which can catch any Pokemon without fail, then tells us we're free to free the legendary Pokemon, as he's gotten all he needs from them. I bravely walked forward, passing scientist after scientist, expressing deep regret for what they had done. In the next room, another challenge awaited us.
Okay, I'll admit I was a bit of a goofy goober here.
I didn't heal my Pokemon at all, because I thought we were done struggling for the fate of these wild Pokemon. Saturn had other ideas though. Seeking retribution for defeating him previously, Saturn sicks his Golbat, Toxicroak, and Bronzor on us. Golbat unfortunately made quick work of Breeze with a Confuse Ray / Bite combo. Next to fall was Sterling, although not before setting up Stealth Rock and taking Golbat down. Toxicroak is a dual poison and fighting type Pokemon, and it only took a single Brick Break to cause Sterling to faint. Thorn came in next, and she was able to make huge progress in the battle using her typical Grass Whistle, Leech Seed, Magical Leaf combo to deal a lot of damage to Toxicroak. One crazy thing that happened during this matchup though was that Toxicroak woke up after only one turn of sleep the first time around, which is pretty rare in my experience. Once Saturn's Pokemon woke up the second time, an absurdly powerful Poison Jab did Thorn in, and my team was officially half defeated, with only a 20 HP Topper, Peapod, and Heffalump standing. Peapod also went down after one turn, thanks to Poison Jab and a chance infliction of the poisoned status as well, but quite a bit of damage was dealt out. Topper was too slow to get a move off, and he too was quickly defeated by Toxicroak, leaving Heffalump to win the whole thing. Honestly, I should have swapped Heffalump in sooner, since her moves are super effective against both Toxicroak and Bronzor. All it took to clutch the match up was an Earthquake to defeat Toxicroak and a critical hit Fire Fang to knock out Bronzor, allowing us to take our second win against Saturn. Defeated in both battle and spirit, Saturn stands out of the way and directs us to press the center button to free Mesprit, Yuxi, and Azelf. After doing that, the Galactic HQ is abandoned, and all our attention is turned to Cyrus's plot atop Mount Coronet. You see, the scientists used the lake Pokemon to craft the Red Chain, a device intended to call and shackle even more powerful entities than we've ever seen before. So the situation is dire.
Cyrus and his team have a pretty big head start on us, so there's no time to lose. We have to climb Spear Pillar.
Returning to where we first encountered Cyrus in Mount Coronet between Orberg and Hardhome, a new pathway to the top of the mountain has been unveiled behind a shattered and defaced cave painting. Looker appears for the final time in the main story, pleading with us to do what he cannot: stop Cyrus. For the next few minutes, we're snaking in and out of Mount Coronet, climbing higher and higher up towards the sky, and ultimately, Spear Pillar. While we're on this trek, I'd like to share one kind of funny story. When I first played Pokemon Platinum, I was in 2nd grade, and my friend, who we'll call, I don't know, Aiden V, had a copy of Pokemon Diamond that he and I bonded over. Unlike my game though, Aiden V had used a Game Shark to modify his copy so he could purchase unlimited Master Balls. I, having just gotten my first Master Ball ever, and figuring my game would end up like his to where I could buy an infinite supply, haphazardly tossed my Master Ball at a Bronzong, a Pokemon I had no intention of ever using.
Catching all of Platinum's legendaries was a lot harder after that.
In case you don't know, there is no reliable way of getting another Master Ball, let alone an infinite supply. I was a foolish kid.
But, as I hope you'll come to know once this whole shindig is over, that's what makes Platinum so perfect.
Being in the state of mind to get lost in the world, to not leave it when mom tells you to put the DS away and take a bath, to think, breathe, and dream Pokemon 24/7 is a freeing experience, and something that makes this game special.
Without a sense of childlike or adult-like wonder, I worry you'll never be open to an experience like this again.
Anyway, after nearly a dozen galactic grunt battles, we've reached the summit of Mount Coronet. Before us stands Mars, Jupiter, and further away, Cyrus, preparing for his world-shattering experiment.
The two commanders attempt to block our path, threatening to take us on back to back, with Mars weakening our team and Jupiter finishing the job.
Out of nowhere, Gonzo rushes in and makes the battle a 2-on-2 skirmish for the fate of the Sinnoh region. It was at this moment that I made a startling realization.
Gonzo sucks at Pokemon. He sucks so bad.
I could take some time to break down the battle like I've done for previous encounters to help build up the narrative, but I cannot pretend this battle went well. Gonzo has zero battle sense in his entire central nervous system. Gonzo is an anomaly of the Pokemon world and should be deeply and scientifically studied. For the majority of the battle, Gonzo had his baby Munchlax just stockpiling and swallowing turn after turn. He did no damage. He buffed his Pokemon and did no damage. The only way I could get him to actually do something was by knocking out his Munchlax myself. I proceeded to do the same thing to his Staraptor, and eventually he pulled his head out of his comfy and easy to wear shorts by making his Heracross use a super effective move. which ended the battle. But good lord, Gonzo, I could have finished that battle much faster if I was standing on my own 2 feet. No matter how it wrapped up, the double battle against Mars and Jupiter is finished, and all eyes go to Cyrus, and he's ready for the final act. Using the red chain extracted from the lake Pokemon alongside a second one Team Galactic reverse engineered, Cyrus calls forth and seizes control of Dialga, the legendary Pokemon who controls time, and Palkia, the legendary Pokemon who controls space. With their powers combined and under his command, Cyrus is powerful enough to reshape the very fabric of the universe. The Lake Trio try and intervene, but they are powerless to do so. As the ground starts to rumble, it becomes clear that Cyrus has won. Nobody can stop him.
Except for one Pokemon.
From the darkness that has fallen over Sinnoh, a shadowy portal rips into Spirit Pillar, and the legendary Pokemon Giratina, the antithesis to everything we know about the world, frees Dialga and Palkia before retreating into the rift it opened. Jupiter, Mars, and Cynthia, who has shown up not a moment too soon, are all stunned as Giratina jump scares us and pulls Cyrus into an interdimensional touchpoint. As fearless as ever, Cynthia leads us into the Distortion World to chase after both Cyrus and Giratina.
There's a whole lot of lore in the next stretch of gameplay, and it doesn't necessarily make sense to withhold some information now that we'll just learn in a few minutes. So let me get everything you need to know out of the way.
A wise man once said that every action has its equal opposite reaction. No, I don't mean Newton, I mean Hamilton, or Lin-Manuel Miranda. Either way, the Legend of Sinnoh states that originally there were 3 Pokemon that created the universe. Dialga created time, Palkia created space, and Giratina created a stir. Apparently, Giratina was so violent and uncontrollable, everything the main world was created to not be, that Arceus created a second world that stands as a mirror to the main one where Giratina would be sealed away. From this distortion world, Giratina maintained balance in the universe by being a sink for all the immense negativity. Who's Arceus? Oh geez. Cyrus's new plan is to defeat Giratina in order to destabilize and eventually close the Distortion World, thus unbalancing the universe and allowing him to essentially full reset it.
Our job is, obviously, to stop him.
Now that we've got the story stuff out of the way, let's take a moment to take in the look and feel of the Distortion World. The main thing to ogle at here, besides the incredibly unique set pieces, is the fact that we'll be walking on walls, upside down, and through rocks and plants as the world twists and contorts around us. Technically speaking, this was the most complex location ever depicted in a Pokemon game up until Platinum's release, and I'd argue it still contends for that title to this day. The wall walking doesn't really do much for me in the set building department, but I'd be lying to you if I said this wasn't the coolest thing I'd ever seen in elementary school. And it does drive home the point that this is a disorienting dimension. When I think of the Distortion World, its color palette, its haunting music, and the sounds of wind blowing through the bottomless void, I think of it as a place that's meant to be unnerving. Definitely a place you don't want to explore alone. Right, Cynthia? Cynthia?
Cynthia freaking books it!
She takes off, like, right away, and once you catch up to her after doing a gravity-defying stunt or two, she suggests the two of you split up.
Without a doubt, Cynthia is a capable, smart, tough-as-nails trainer. But even Dwayne Johnson would have wanted a field trip buddy for this one.
Why wasn't Cynthia a partner trainer for this area, like Cheryl was for the Eterna Forest, or Riley was for Iron Island?
Well, I can answer my question. There are no wild Pokemon encounters in the Distortion World.
This makes perfect sense, as Giratina was banished here eons ago, and the portal to the main world was only opened a handful of minutes ago, but I don't know if I like this or not. Random encounters would have killed the mood of the Distortion World without a doubt, but without something to do, the area gets stale fast. It's not overly long or anything, but the charm did wear off fairly quickly for me.
Even if Cynthia didn't battle alongside you, it would have been nice to have her following you for the duration of our stay.
After a little bit of wandering, the Lake Trio will reappear and guide you to a strength puzzle where you push boulders into the slots Azelf, Mesprit, and Yuxi point to. While this challenge allows you to wander around Giratina's realm some more, walk on a couple more walls, and swim down a waterfall flowing upwards, at the end of the day, it's a really, really bland activity. My summary of the Distortion World thoroughly hinges on the fact that it's a great set piece, but it culminates in a simple strength puzzle. I don't know exactly what the area needed, but something more unique than what you had to do in order to climb the very earthly Mount Coronet would have been nice. Also, extremely minor pet peeve, but Cyrus had to do none of this. Once all is said and done, he just waltzes up and picks a fight with whoever stands in the way of his deliverance of justice. Interestingly, as we got closer to his original plan and now further off the rails than we've ever been before, Cyrus has been growing more and more expressive. The cool, calculating villain from the start of the game has given way to a panicked, borderline psychotic man.
Returning to his original thesis, pain, hate, strife, and fear are all caused by the imperfect nature of human beings. But he's looking pretty imperfect right about now.
He goes on to talk about the worthless presence of the human spirit in his final dialogue, but the only way he got to where he is today was by having an idea and the drive to follow through on it.
I'd call that the human spirit, if you ask me.
The Distortion World does spell the end for Cyrus, like I said, but not before one final battle. Between Veilstone HQ and here, Cyrus added a Houndoom and a Gyarados to his lineup, and his Sneasel evolved into a Weavile.
I'm going to be super blunt with you. I cheesed this fight.
My team wasn't at peak power because I had to swap out Peapod for an HM friend to push the dang rocks around, and I would have taken my loss on the chin and leveled up a bit if losing didn't mean having to reclimb Mount Coronet and redo all of the Distortion World.
Just say before the fight, bozo, you might be saying, but Cyrus kind of initiates the fight without an obvious heads up.
In Kingdom Hearts, the game breaks the fourth wall and says, "You ought to save now," before the final battle. Cyrus offering a yes or no prompt would have been nice, or at minimum, make Spear Pillar a place you can fly to.
Alright, let's get back on track and cover the fight itself.
I start off with Sterling, and Cyrus starts Houndoom. My plan is to set up Stealth Rock, and then use my other Rock-type move to defeat it, but Houndoom gets the jump on me, and Sterling goes down. Topper's up next, and a single Surf levels out the playing field, bringing us both down to 4 Pokemon effectively.
Yes, I've got a Geodude, but that thing isn't going to be doing any damage.
His Gyarados comes out next, and I figure I can take that down with a Flying-type hidden power or two, but he one-shots Topper with a super effective Earthquake attack.
Really, it's all downhill from here.
Thorn's taken out in one Ice Fang, and even after a revive, she only puts Gyarados to sleep with Grass Whistle for a measly single turn before she's KO'd again. Luckily, her Poison Point ability poisons Gyarados on the way out, so we are getting some damage over time. Using both Heffalump and Breeze, I revive and heal up Topper, who goes back in for a War of Attrition that I am cheating at. A handful of Hyper Potions later, and Gyarados goes down to poison.
At this point, I've accepted that I'm a dirty, rotten, stinking cheater, and I fully embrace the dark side.
I pop an X Special, X Speed, X Defense, all that stuff, and keep Topper healed up before I start sweeping the rest of Cyrus's team. Honchkrow, Weavile, and Crobat all go down in one hit thanks to my juiced up starter.
I don't feel good about cheesing the battle this hard, but I think of it as a necessary evil, keeping in mind all the hoops I'd have to jump through to reattempt this fight.
I think if I had known how to better orient my team, I could have won fair and square. Topper as a starting Pokemon against Houndoom would have bought Sterling a better fighting chance, and with better sleep luck, Thorn could have easily held her own against Gyarados.
From there, the rest of the battle would have been simple. Alas, that's not what happened, and so I cheated.
With Cyrus defeated once and for all, he's even more enraged than he's ever been before. Believing Giratina to be the only reason the Distortion World exists, he challenges us to capture or defeat it, since the only way out is through the path Giratina's blocking. He even goes so far as to say we've inherited his legacy, meaning now the destruction of the world is our fault. Cynthia shares a different point of view and says our looming battle against Giratina is not about power or control, but about mutual respect. Giratina's corruption of the real world is only a saving throw to stop Cyrus. And by showing how much we love and appreciate Pokemon and the world they inhabit, we can convince Giratina to go back to its dormant state. Whether or not Cyrus or Cynthia is correct can only be proven through one test. It's time to encounter the renegade Pokemon, Giratina. There are 3 options when walking into this battle. You can run from Giratina, but only speedrunners do that. You could defeat Giratina, but only a crazy person would do that. Or you could attempt to catch the beast, which is the cool thing to do.
Starting off with Sterling, the plan was simple.
Whittle down Giratina's HP and hopefully put it to sleep with Thorn in order to get the highest chance of catching it in a ball. Sterling landed a series of Iron Tail attacks, with Topper coming in with a hidden power move to drop Giratina literally to 1 pixel of HP. Thorn was able to come in and get Giratina to sleep, but not before having to be revived, because, as it turns out, the ruler of an entire alternate dimension is pretty darn powerful.
My biggest fear was accidentally swapping Heffalump in and having to watch Giratina faint to an eye-irritating sandstorm.
Once all the damage was done and the sleep was inflicted, it was time to start throwing Pokeballs and seeing what sticks.
Admittedly, I wasn't super prepared for a catch of this magnitude.
Besides some spare Great Balls and Ultra Balls that I'd picked up across my adventure, and a single Timer Ball, I was woefully low on stock. Still, I gave it my all.
It also doesn't help that I really don't like catching things in anything besides a regular Pokeball, but that's an odd quirk we don't need to get into right now.
I tossed ball after ball to little success.
I'll tell you what though, there's nothing like being on the edge of your seat watching a Pokeball rock back and forth, hoping it'll stay shut.
A dozen Pokeballs later, and I'm still miles away from getting this legendary Pokemon locked down. First, all the Great Balls go. Then, my supply of Ultra Balls has diminished away. Ah, no! That was my last ball! Well, almost my last one. Here goes nothing.
And with that, Giratina is safely in our possession, and the threat looming over our world is over.
Cyrus, baffled by our insistence on saving a world he sees as incomplete, asks one final question. Why?
Cynthia answers, and her words are beautiful.
The places we are born, the time we spend living, the languages we speak, we are all different. Since there is sadness, we can feel joy. When there is anger, compassion is born.
I stripped all the text about Pokemon out of that blurb, but if you take the time and really read what she says, you can glean that we live in a wonderful world.
An imperfect world, as Cyrus has pointed out time and time again, but a great one. We experience pain, strife, loss, and challenges. But those things, at least in the eyes of this children's game, serve as the antithesis and enhancer of the things we wake up and strive for every day.
That's profoundly deep for a game where oversized rats can breathe fire on sky lizards, and it's something I think we should all sleep on.
Cyrus, in his own evil way, takes her words with frustration and storms off, insistent that he can still make a new world.
I guess he'll just live in the distortion world now, and not face any charges for
organizing a terrorist group, kidnapping and or taking hostages, theft of personal property, running an illegal lottery, maybe? Team Galactic did have some sort of hand in the Game Corner slot machines, defacing historical artwork, or any of the other crimes he committed in order to get here.
Enjoy your life in the endless void, dude.
Hopping through one final Distortion World portal takes us to Send-Off Spring, an area between Veilstone and Sunny Shore City. Cynthia rightfully thanks and congratulates us on our world-saving Pokemon skills, and encourages us to go debrief everything that's gone down in the last few hours with Professor Rowan back at his lab in Sandgem. A quick flight on Breeze and a stop at a Pokemon Center to pick Peapod back up, and we're off to chat with Rowan.
From this point until the end of our adventure, which is rapidly approaching, the game slows down a lot, which I appreciate.
In most RPGs, the tension builds and builds until the final boss battle, and the credits roll or short epilogue is all you get to see of your hero's return to normal life.
In Pokémon Platinum, there's sort of a push and pull with the narrative and the standard 8-gym system, where one can take the spotlight while the other simmers in the background.
With Team Galactic defeated and Cyrus condemned to an alternate world, we're free to go back to the simple quest of collecting the gym badges, facing the Elite Four, and ultimately becoming the champion. A stressed out Professor Rowan encourages this, as he too could use a break from the world-ending scenario we were just in. He also mentions here that he was calling people left and right to try and get us some support, which makes me really want Pokemon to go full-scale endgame one time and have a bunch of previous protagonists, rivals, gym leaders, and professors all swoop in to help take down the biggest evil of all. Rowan also mentions that he's 60, which is just insane because my dad is almost 60, and he doesn't look anywhere near as old as Rowan.
That dude could have passed for 80 easily.
Now that everybody's on the same page and the world is definitively saved, we can head out to Sunny Shore City, home of the 8th and final Sinnoh Gym. On the way, I swung back by Send-Off Spring to pick up a Barrel, aka Bink Bonk 2, who will hold all the HMs we need for the last stretch of the game.
Thank you for your service, Bink Bonk 2, and shout out to the original Bink Bonk and Geodude as well. We couldn't have done it without you.
Heading south of Veilstone to the previously blocked Route 222 gives way to a rather calm and uneventful route. There's a handful of random trainers to battle, but after going toe-to-toe with the pure embodiment of chaos in the Pokemon world and shoving it into the PC storage system, they're not too threatening.
In fact, that theme will carry forth through the Sunny Shore Gym.
Upon entering the city itself, a Pokemon League Elite Four member named Flint will approach us and encourage us to challenge the gym leader, Volkner. Because he's the strongest gym leader in the region, and having been blocked off from new challengers because of the recent power outage, Volkner's feeling really bored and down on Pokemon itself. Flint hypes us up, saying that we're capable of restoring Volkner's energy and battle spirit if we show him an exhilarating match.
Basically, if we can defeat him in a great battle, he'll get the pep back in his step.
Volkner doubles down on this when we find him hiding out in the city's lighthouse.
Yes, that means we once again have a gym leader who isn't ready to do their job. But since this guy's depressed, I'll cut him some slack.
So all we have to do here in Sunny Shore's Electric Gym is to show Volkner a heated battle.
Easy peasy, right? Well, no. We do not pose an exciting challenge to Volkner. We pose imminent doom.
By we, I, of course, mean Heffalump. To put it incredibly bluntly, electric-type attacks do 0 damage to ground-type Pokemon, and ground-type attacks do double damage to an electric Pokemon.
This gym is going to be the easiest one we have ever done.
As gym trainer after gym trainer fall to Heffalump's Earthquake attack, that becomes more and more apparent. The puzzle in Volkner's gym involves a series of rotating platforms on a set of gears that move when you step on a pressure plate. According to Flint, Volkner took the downtime during the blackout to revamp the gym's layout and puzzle, so all of this is his handiwork.
I'm curious to see what it looked like before he took a hacksaw to the floors.
Whatever version of OSHA exists in Sinnoh surely has to have a problem with this electricity arcing over 10-year-olds.
I can't even climb a ladder at work without completing a safety seminar, but this guy can have live current arcing over the air?
Alright, enough talk. It's time to face Volkner now. Sporting a Jolteon, a Raichu, a Luxray, and an Electivire as his ace, Volkner's entire team has one singular move, Ice Fang, that can do super effective damage to Heffalump. Everything else is neutral, or she's immune to it.
If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. This gym was so easy.
Earthquake, 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 and one final Earthquake was all it took in order to defeat all of Volkner's Pokemon. And somehow, that crushing, agonizing defeat was just what the doctor ordered to perk him back up. Reignited to seek out tough trainers and experience the highs and lows of Pokemon battling, Volkner hands over the gym badge for Sunny Shore City, thus completing our set and allowing us to access the Pokemon League. Don't they look pretty all together? North of Sunny Shores is where our final destination lies, and with the help of a visiting girl of definitely no significance named Jasmine, we can get the last HM of the game, which will allow us to reach the Elite Four. Route 223 is entirely ocean, and it dead ends in a waterfall, which we can now summit thanks to the Sunny Shore Gym badge and the aptly named HM07 Waterfall. This route is abnormally long, and it's jam-packed full of trainers.
Being on a water route this long, I feel like I'm in Hoenn, but with a distinct lack of blaring trumpets.
Battling strong opponents on Route 223 is just the tip of the endgame iceberg, as we're headed into the belly of the trainer's beast.
Before we can take on the final challenge of the game, we'll need to battle through Victory Road.
Multiple floors and a ridiculous quantity of trainers bound for the Pokemon League challenge stand between us and the final encounters of Pokémon Platinum. My priority when battling through Victory Road was to even-handedly level up my team across the board, so that we're ready for the last 5 matches of the game. I don't necessarily want them to be a cakewalk, see the Volkner fight if you want to watch that, but I'd rather not be in a Doctor Strange 1 in 14,605,000 situation where everything needs to go right in order for me to beat the game. Thankfully, the 16 trainers that call Victory Road their home have a wide spread of Pokemon variety, so every teammate got their chance to shine, besides Heffalump.
I had to give someone a day off in order to bring Bink Bonk 2 along, and Heffalump definitely deserved one.
All things considered, there aren't many specifics to discuss when it comes to this part of the game. It's a series of battles, just like the ones we've seen hundreds of times so far. Living in a post-Team Galactic world, there's not a lot of adrenaline in these battles. And because we're so high-leveled, new moves are infrequent, and evolutions are long gone.
Battles aren't stale per se, since there's always some thought and strategy required, but they definitely don't feel fresh and new anymore.
We've learned our skills, we've honed them, and all that's left to do is show them off. After nearly an hour of wandering around a big old cave, the light at the end of the tunnel gives way to the Pokemon League proper. I took this final opportunity to level up all of my Pokemon, so their levels range between 52 and 56 before heading into the last rooms of the game.
Like I said, I don't want the upcoming battles to be a walk in the park, but I would like them to be fair.
Knowing each Elite Four member has 2 full restores, and that I'm aiming to not heal in battle, I'm already off on the wrong foot, so a few extra levels aren't a bad idea. Upon entering the Pokemon League building for real, and after approaching the attendant to start the League challenge, Gonzo rushes in out of nowhere and challenges us to one more rival battle, for old time's sake.
Unfortunately, we have some really exciting battles coming up, and I'd rather take time to talk about those than chronicle Gonzo's final crushing defeat.
His Pokemon fought valiantly, he picked up a Snorlax, and I one-shot most of his team. After getting all 8 of our badges checked, it's time to take on the first Elite Four member, Aaron. A user of Bug-type Pokemon, Aaron still presents a substantial challenge, as his Pokemon know their weaknesses and have responses to them.
Truthfully, I walked into Aaron's room thinking I would overpower his team with level numbers alone, and I was quickly humbled.
Mistake after mistake and my own overconfidence made this fight get really tense really fast, and it was an important eye-opener for what was to come. Aaron started the fight with his Yanmega, and I started with Topper. A single Ice Beam defeated the first of 5 Pokemon I'd need to beat to move on, and I was feeling super confident after my decisive first matchup victory. That Moxie crumbled instantaneously as Topper fainted after Heracross's close combat attack, and Breeze fell shortly after to a Stone Edge. Heffalump, my third Pokemon for everyone keeping track at home, did some good damage to Heracross, and I was able to burn one of Aaron's full restores thanks to the super effective nature of Fire Fang.
One bite took down like 80% of Heracross's health, and that triggered a full restore.
Heffalump fainted after doing her part in this battle, but the odds were beginning to stack up against us. Peapod fainted in a single hit, and it was up to Thorn to turn the tides of the battle. Heracross finally fainted, and Thorn got matched up against Drapion, who knocked her out with back-to-back Ice Fang attacks. I wasn't playing well here.
I skipped over my usual sleep tactic because I didn't think I needed it. But that landed me in the difficult situation of tasking Sterling with KOing 3 straight Pokemon.
Luckily for me, and I do really mean luckily, Aaron's Drapion, Scizor, and Vespiquen didn't have any attacks that did a significant amount of damage to Sterling. That, combined with Heffalump's lingering Sandstorm, gave Sterling a war of attrition that he could win, although it did take quite a lot of time. With just 39 HP separating my team from getting kicked back out to the lobby, Sterling clutched up, and Aaron was defeated.
What a stressful Elite Four battle, and this was only the first one.
I healed up my team and stowed my ego away before walking into the next room. My team was strong, yes, but our opponents were strong too.
While they may not have saved the world, traveled to an alternate dimension, or helped banish an entity capable of destroying reality to the confines of a Pokeball, they deserve respect.
More importantly, my team deserves respect, and throwing them into a battle without a proper strategy is no way to treat them. My battle against the Ground-type Elite Four member, Bertha, would be different.
For one, I went in with a real strategy.
While healing up my team from the fight against Aaron, I checked both Topper and Thorn's speed stats, and Thorn's was significantly higher. With this in mind, my plan was to send Thorn out first, set up a Sleep and Leech Seed lock, then chip away at the enemy with Magical Leaf, which would hit for super effective damage. In reality, this wasn't necessary, since Magical Leaf would one-shot nearly any Pokemon on Bertha's team, but I wasn't going to let my lesson from the first battle go to waste. Thorn was able to take down Bertha's Wish Cache, but her part-flying type Gliscor resisted the grass attacks, and ultimately took Thorn down.
That's okay though, because she did her part for the battle.
Our beloved starter Topper came in, and besides a stressful Earthquake attack that brought his health down to the yellow range, he was able to defeat Gliscor, Hippowdon, Golem, and Rhyperior in one surf each.
Not a bad way to recover from an extremely rocky start to the Elite Four run.
A very clean fight, mostly thanks to the typing of my Pokemon and a little luck on hitting my attacks. Thankfully, the next fight went smoothly as well. Flint, the Fire-type Elite Four member we met outside of Sunyshore City, is our next encounter. And with Topper and Heffalump at the lead, the fight went by almost as fast as Bertha's, though it was much tougher.
In a move that may confuse you at first, I decided to start the battle with Heffalump.
Yes, this may give the appearance that I'm condemning the battle to have sandstorm weather for the entire duration, but because of Flint's insistence on using Sunny Day, a move that boosts fire-type moves and weakens water types, I knew the sandstorm wouldn't last long. Because his Houndoom used its first move to change the weather, I was able to use Earthquake and take it down without much trouble. Flint's Rapidash fainted equally as fast, which I guess is why they call it Rapidash. I will say that Rapidash hit Heffalump with a chargeless Solar Beam out of nowhere, but thankfully our ground-type tank had enough special defense to stand strong. Good on you, gal. Flint's Ace, a level 57 Magmortar, was difficult to deal with. Once Heffalump fainted, I was in a tough situation. I thought about sending in Topper, but I wasn't convinced he'd be able to get the job done against such a fast powerhouse.
Instead, I opted for a teammate that will definitely confuse you at first. Thorn.
Being the fastest member of my party, Thorn was the perfect choice to attempt a sleep lock. Luckily, Grass Whistle landed, and I was able to Leech Seed Magmortar as well. From there, Thorn spammed Sludge Bomb until Flint inevitably used a full restore, which woke Magmortar up. The Sludge Bomb I had queued up resulted in Flint's Pokemon being poisoned, which was cool, but that meant I could no longer put them to sleep. With damage over time from poison and Leech Seed, all I could do was get as much damage on the field as possible so another Pokemon could wrap things up. By the grace of Arceus, Magmortar missed every attack, and Thorn was able to defeat the strongest Fire-type Pokemon in the game single-handedly.
I'm proud of her. She's come a long way.
Topper came in and whittled Flareon down to just pixels of HP before Flint swapped it out for Infernape, who took Topper down. Breeze used his Fly attack to deal super effective damage to the half-fighting type Infernape, ending that match definitively, and Sterling took down the last of Flareon's HP, thus ending the third Elite Four match of our Sinnoh League run.
Only one left.
While healing my team for the final Elite Four member, I got a little panicked. Lucian is a Psychic-type user, which means I'll want to hit his Pokemon with Dark, Bug, or Ghost-type moves, but Peapod and Breeze have been woefully neglected during my level-up process.
They're not weak per se, but Lucian's team ranges in level from 53 all the way up to 59, and they definitely have moves to cover anything I could throw at them.
Still, I steeled my nerves and pressed on, my Pokemon standing beside me. Breeze kicked off this battle against Lucian's Mr. Mime, and I planned to use a strategy I complained about as a kid. While Lucian set up Reflect and Light Screen to boost his defensive stats, Breeze repeatedly used Minimize to boost his evasiveness. My plan, because I knew Mr. Mime knew Thunderbolt, was to avoid the super effective damage by not allowing it to hit me. While one Thunderbolt did hit, Breeze was able to dodge the rest of them and finish the first matchup. Lucian's Espeon was defeated by Sterling easily, which set the stage for the toughest matchup of the final Elite Four battle. Lucian's level 59 Gallade is fast, deadly, and had coverage against all my Pokemon. Instead of going for a super effective attacker, I sent out Thorn, and with her high speed, she was able to put Gallade to sleep. Leech Seed was also deployed here, though it didn't end up mattering much. Once the setup was done, I swapped Peapod in to use his new Perish Song move, an attack that feints both the user and the opponent in 3 turns. I figured this battle was in the bag, but after feinting Peapod, Gallade just switched out, which apparently cancels Perish Song.
That was a bummer. I felt really smart trapping the enemy's most powerful Pokemon, but it was easier to escape than I thought.
Alakazam came out next, and Topper had to go in and use Surf to defeat him after both Thorn and Sterling fell in battle. Gallade finally got defeated next, leaving my final Pokemon of Topper and Heffalump left to go against Lucian's Bronzong.
Out of all of Lucian's team, Bronzong was the one I felt most confident against, so there didn't have to be any cheeky strategy here.
I was able to defeat the Steel Psychic type with Surf, but Heffalump's Fire Fang was my hidden trump card in case I needed to use it. With Lucian's expertly assembled team down, there's only one trainer standing between us and the end of the game. The champion of the Sinnoh region is 1 haul away, so it's time to end this thing.
While we haven't identified them as such yet, we have met the Sinnoh champion in our travels.
In order to achieve the rank of champion, a trainer must be strong, sure, but they also must have a good heart, calm mind, and distinct moral compass.
At least, that's a requirement in the post-Kanto world. Blue, what are you doing here?
Of all the people we've met on the road, only one fits that description to a T. She's been in and out of our adventure, but when the going got tough, she was right by our side, diving headfirst to put an end to the world-shattering conflict Team Galactic was stirring up.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time we face the Sinnoh League champion, Cynthia, in battle. Does anyone else hear piano music?
Widely regarded as one of the strongest Pokemon trainers in the entire series, Cynthia's champion battle is no joke. Cynthia has a team of 6 bulky beasts of Pokemon that won't go down easy. But my team's been with me since the start, growing alongside me, taking on some of the region's most determined trainers and terrorists. And they're ready for one last challenge. The battle begins with Cynthia leading with her Spiritomb and Topper taking center stage for our team. Spiritomb is scary on paper, but none of her moves are too threatening to Topper, and one Surf brings the first matchup of the battle to a close.
Next up is Cynthia's ace, and one of the scariest battles in the entire Pokemon franchise, Garchomp.
Level 62, hybrid dragon ground type, and capable of one-shotting almost all of our team, except the chosen one. Topper switches out for Heffalump, who resists all of Garchomp's attacks enough to put the fearsome dragon to sleep with Yawn. It may be a bit of a sacrifice, but Heffalump did more of her fair share in this struggle for the title of champion. Once Garchomp is asleep, Topper can switch back in and hit one critical Ice Beam to bring the amount of remaining Pokemon to a comfortable 5-4.
Cynthia still has troublesome Pokemon on her team though, so there's no room to breathe a sigh of relief yet.
Matched against the opposing Lucario, Thorn's responsibility is to do her classic Sleep and Leech Seed lock once more. Thanks to Heffalump's Sandstorm and Lucario's speed, Thorn did take some damage, so her use in upcoming matchups is left unknown. Topper comes back in to hit the sleeping Lucario with Surf, and it took down about half the enemy's HP. Unfortunately, Lucario woke back up and hit Topper down to a mere 13 health, but luckily, one more Surf was enough to even the battle back up. Up next is Cynthia's Togekiss, which is another awkward type matchup. The best path forward, in my mind, was to switch out to Sterling, who had Rock-type moves and could hit the Flying type for super effective damage. Cynthia, being an expert trainer, was ready for this, and Aura Sphere put Sterling down without much of a fuss. Thorn swaps in to create a Sleep Lock, but she too faints shortly after her mission thanks to that pesky Sandstorm. Topper, with just a tiny bit of HP, is sent in to wrap up the battle with an Ice Beam or two.
I was shaking with nerves here because if Togekiss got full restored, I'd have no way to start the Sleep Lock again.
No need to stress about that though, since I thankfully avoided getting into the heal zone.
There's just 2 Pokemon left, and I'm starting to taste victory.
Rose Raid is next up on the docket, but I'm not as worried about Cynthia's last Pokemon as I was her first few. Still, they're definitely nothing to scoff at. After some careful thought, Breeze goes in and I use the move Fly in an attempt to both deal super effective damage and to dodge whatever counterattacks Rose Raid may have. The strategy works, and Cynthia's down to 1 Pokemon, Milotic. A pure water type, Milotic is probably the least threatening Pokemon on the champion's team.
Here, I made a play that was cinematic, but probably stupid.
I switched Breeze out for Peapod and selected my move of choice. Milotic comes in with a Surf attack, which brings Peapod down to a mere 3 HP. By surviving the attack, Peapod guarantees our victory.
From my weakest Pokemon to an essential part of my win against Sinnoh's champion.
You see, just like I did in earlier Elite Four matches, I had Peapod use Perish Song. In 3 turns, Milotic would faint no matter what, and we would be crowned the champion. All the stragglers of my team needed to do was last 3 more turns. Peapod fainted immediately after using Perish Song because of the Sandstorm, and the Perish count fell to 3. Topper's 13 HP are quickly done away with, but the Perish count fell to 2. Heffalump is sent in next, and Milotic's super effective Surf takes her out in 1 turn. The Perish count fell to 1. Breeze, my last Pokemon able to battle, enters the field. Using Fly, he dodges any damage Milotic tried in vain to inflict. While Breeze soared high above the combat, Milotic's Perish count fell to 0, and the battle was over. Just a few moments ago, you were the most powerful challenger, and just now, you've become the most powerful of all the trainers. You are now our newest champion. Nearly 24 hours of playtime have passed since first setting off on this adventure. 8 gym badges, 6 battle-hardened Pokemon partners, 3 galactic commanders, 14 towns and cities, 1 world-ending scenario, and 1 mutual goal in mind. Through thick and thin, and thanks to the work of the talented developers and team at Game Freak, we've been able to forge our own unique spin on this game's story.
I'll admit it, I've been hamming up certain aspects of this game.
By putting a dramatic, cinematic, childlike investment into the game, you can get a lot more out of it.
While games like Final Fantasy or other JRPGs may be better on paper, I'd be hard-pressed to find a more unique, individualized adventure than Pokémon Platinum.
I mean it when I say every playthrough is unique. There's an unrepeatable essence with the Pokémon series that allows you to seize control and truly be the main character.
For that, and many other reasons, Pokémon Platinum is the adventure of a lifetime, and it belongs in your pocket.
This isn't where the game ends, as there's an entire post-game island with more battles, new Pokemon to encounter, and an additional story to unravel, including an attempted reignition of Team Galactic. But our time with Platinum will be drawing to a close.
I sincerely hope you've enjoyed going on this adventure with me.
It was long, it took blood, sweat, and tears, but it was something we shared together. If you want to take the plunge through Sinnoh yourself, your best bet may be the Nintendo Switch Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes of Platinum's base versions, Diamond and Pearl. DS cartridges of Platinum are pricey and only getting pricier.
Ed Sheeran once said that the best things in life come free to us, so he's clearly never searched for a cartridge of Pokémon Platinum. Or a Cynthia body pillow. Seriously, these things are like $80. You'll notice mine doesn't have a cover on it. That's because if I showed it on camera, I would definitely get banned. Aren't people great?